America's wild Mustangs are vanishing, and Pulitzer-nominated journalist Dave Phillips wants to find out why. Is the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, at fault? Dave's come to observe what the BLM calls a gather. It's a roundup that removes horses from the range and trucks them to a holding pen. Dave and the film crew arrived at the gather, only to learn the BLM had delayed it a day. Is the agency hoping to avoid the camera? Dave's team just waited them out. Off in the distance, there's visible evidence the roundup has begun. Modern Mustang herding is done not by cowboys, but by helicopter.
They are coming. Look at them coming. They're doing everything they can to evade the predator. See, they'll even try to dash underneath him. They're going to try to go all the way up that hill.
One horse is actually a kind of secret agent working for the BLM.
And they just let the Judas go, I think.
It's known as a Judas horse, a domestic horse trained to lure the wild horses into the corral. It acts as a kind of Pied Piper, because the Mustangs usually follow the Judas horse's lead.
The black horse stops.
The horses most likely to be injured are the young and the weak. Here, a foal is separated from its group.
Right now, we've got two wranglers heading out to rope a foal that was left behind.
The activists film the roundup, but the BLM films the activists.
Everybody down, please. We have another group coming in.
Out on the range, the helicopter drives another band of horses toward the trap, but one stallion bolts the other way.
What he's trying to do is draw the helicopter away.
But the desperate attempt doesn't work. The rest of the herd follows the Judas horse into the trap. Now the stallion has a choice: join the others or run. The stallion chooses freedom. For the rest, life will never be the same.
From here on out, this is the end of the line.
This is the end of the line. Their freedom is lost.
Today, the roundup captures 99 Mustangs. Why is the government going to such lengths to capture so many wild horses?
So what's the fear if you don't round them up?
You've got areas where the horses themselves have caused a lot of damage, or they've just eaten everything up and there's nothing for them. So if you leave them out there, their condition's just going to worsen.
The Mustangs are also roaming land coveted by the mining and fracking industries. But some of the biggest concern is coming from cattle ranchers, whose cows consume much of the same water the Mustangs do.
Well, most of the people that got horses intermingled with cattle are just really frustrated because they're trying to manage the resource, and the horses have just used up the resource.
If you listen to horse advocates, they make it out that all the ranchers want to immediately send all the horses on the range and in holding to the slaughter plant.
It doesn't make any difference what they want. That can't happen, and it's not going to happen. The public's not going to stand for it at the moment. And besides, we don't have a processing plant in place where you could even do it if you wanted to.
Dave wants to understand how Mustangs live in the wild. He heads out to their natural habitat on the open Nevada range.
This is wild horse country out here, the driest, emptiest part of the country.
In these parts, water is a key resource for cattle, as well as Mustangs and other wild animals.
One of the things that the BLM told us is there's too many horses on the range, way too many, and that if you leave all these wild horses out here like the advocates want to do, it'll ruin the range.
The horses aren't ruining the range. You've got too many other interests on the range, and you've got nobody managing it. The BLM management is what's ruining the range. We're going to lose our wild horses. There's so few left. And BLM says there's too many? Absolutely not.
The horses are supposed to be protected by the law passed in 1971.
The law says they're to be protected from capture, branding, harassment, and death on the place where they now stand as a living symbol of the pioneer spirit of the West.
And has the government been true to the law?
Absolutely not. What they're doing is heartbreaking.
Today, some 30,000 Mustangs run wild, a tiny fraction of their historic population.
There used to be millions of wild horses all over the West. What happened?
Well, after we got finished using them to fight our wars and plow our fields, we started doing something called Mustanging, running them down with airplanes and trucks and roping them in the desert. And Kill Buyer would come, pick them up, and grind them up for chicken feed.
We turned wild horses into chicken feed?
Absolutely, chicken feed and fertilizer. And then dog food. That's what we did with our wild horses.
Congress passed the 1971 law to protect wild horses from abuse and killing, but the secret slaughters may now be happening again. And that's why Dave wants to investigate what will happen to the Mustangs he saw captured in this roundup. The first stop for the formerly wild